is remote parenting, where parents are not present in their children's lives. Is this also abuse by not giving children direction? Can you relate or elaborate on this, please? Either of you two want to?
Yes, I think that anything we were talking about the power and the control, and even the neglect is a form of abuse. You're saying that they leave them alone, they're not parenting them. That would be a form of abuse to let them go, because the society is going to end up shaping their minds and the environment in which they live. And if the parents are not there to guide them, then they're left out there to fend for themselves. So yes, that would be, I would think that.
For sure. So, we have to be very careful about the children that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. There's many people that they can't have children. Oftentimes you find sisters, brothers in the community been married 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years. They can't have children. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with children. And the way in which you show gratitude will be in how you raise them. And definitely being an absentee father or mother or emotionally abusive to them in any way, shape, or form is something that you are definitely going to be asked about. Our next question is, just 1 second, inshallah, because we're running out of time already. The second question, because we've got a lot here that's very, very important, but we'll be with you afterwards, inshallah, brother. My sister is in a really abusive marriage, though she doesn't want to talk about it at all, and we are unable to help her. What do you do in such a situation? So I'll start and then kick this over to our guest. And I've been in a similar situation like this myself, where I had a family member who was being physically abused and beat up. And, a lot of us, the brothers, we say, well, we know how to handle this problem. Just get a bunch of brothers, roll up on him, break a few bones, let him know next time it's not just going to be his arm. Right? Take care of it. We know how to deal with this sort of situation. And the reality is that, unfortunately, the situation is a whole lot more complicated than that. And, just in this week we were discussing with some of the brothers here, and one of the brothers outside, he was saying, I once witnessed a woman being beat, and I tried to intervene, and she ended up beating me up. She stood by her man. Another brother, he said, well, there was a girl, she came running downstairs all messed up, saying, I can't believe you hit me, I can't believe you hit me. He said, go in the security booth. He was working security. And eventually he came down looking for her, shoved the security out of the way to try to get her. The brother working security knocked him out. Police came, arrested him. 3 days later, he sees her walking with him, going back home. So although we would like to intervene as family members or as community members, the situation is a lot more difficult than that. And I'll leave it with, let the brother give some insight, and then sister, if you could add on to that as well. Because I think this is probably one of the most important things outside of, number one, if you're dealing with this, seek help. Seek help from somebody who's professional, understands how to deal with these situations, right? You don't go to a dentist to fix your oil. You don't go to a mechanic to pull your tooth. Make sure, وَاسْأَلْ أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ لَوْ كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah says, ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. Go to the right people who are professionals that can deal with this. But what also happens is there's a lot of us who are exposed to domestic violence. It's not affecting us. We're not getting hit, but we're like, what do I do? What do I do? Because it's hurtful for us as well, watching our brother or our sister or our mother or somebody else who's being abused.
Bismillah. So, obviously, if you're seeing something happening right in front of you, it's much different than somebody coming up to you and telling you about an experience that they're having, right? So if you're seeing abuse occur in front of you, that's up to you whether you want to act on that or not. But if someone comes to you, someone you know and someone you love, someone you care about, is asking you for advice, or they just come to you telling you about their situation, the first thing you do is listen and pay attention. Because they're not there to hear anything. They're there to speak. They're there to get something off of their chest. So let them do it. Be there and be there for them. You're not there for you. You're not there to show how much you know. You're not there to flex your muscle. You're there for them to just vent to you. When it comes time for advice, this is what we were taught. This is how we were trained in our facility. If you tell them to leave, what is the first thing that's going to come to their mind? What do you mean leave? If I could have left, I would have left already. I wouldn't be here talking to you about it. Leave? I can't just leave. Sometimes they don't have a place to go. Right? So then you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to handle this. And you do what Imam Nick mentioned. You go, take care of the situation, clean. Wipe the person out, right? Let's say you send them to Cuba, never to be seen again, right? What do you think is going to happen? This person obviously had an emotional attachment to the person who was abusing them. Do you think they're going to be all happy and, oh, thank you so much, you solved my problem? They're going to be, what are you, crazy? You send them to Cuba? You're never going to see him again. Right? Or let's say they are. Let's say they asked you to do it. Next time they're in a situation where they're in danger, are they going to know how to handle it? No. They're not going to know how to handle it. You solved nothing, because they're going to fall into the same trap again, and the cycle is going to start over. So the best thing to do if they ask you for advice, or if you're put in a position where someone really needs help, Ahl al-Dhikr, relegate it to the people who know best. Not speaking for anyone in the crowd, but I'm not a professional, and I don't know many professionals who would be able to counsel someone who is going through this. But there are so many resources in this country, and I'm not talking about child protective services. I'm not talking about ACS. I'm talking about anonymous hotlines that will sit with you for as long as you need them to, and tailor a way out for you. They will help you solve the situation in the best way possible, and they were trained to do so. They understand the psychology of the abuser and the abused. They're not just some loser sitting on a couch because he got an internship for 3 years. Okay? So remember to relegate those issues to the people who know best.
I just wanted to comment, just a quick comment, that, you're absolutely right. You have to refer them. But sometimes that's the job that I have when I do that. It's difficult because if a person isn't ready to make any decisions, that's going to be very, very hard. So you have to just leave them and refer them out to people. But other than that, they're not ready. You can't force something because you just drive them away.
Okay, so the next question I'm going to take on myself is, how would you compare the issue of domestic abuse from what Islam teaches us and what public school society teaches us? I'm not sure if this is directly what I think the person's referring to, but I'm going to address it anyway the way I see fit, is that, a lot of times in the Muslim community we have this assumption that it's okay for husbands to beat their wives. Right? We have this assumption, we say, no, it says so in the Quran. وَضْرِبُوهُنْ, and hit them. How do we deal with this in context? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the disobedient wives, the troublemaking wives, and how we should admonish them. First and foremost, that we remind them, وَعِذُوهُنْ, and then فَحْجِرُوهُنْ فِي مَضَاجِعٍ, that we are to separate ourselves from them in bed. And third, we are to وَضْرِبُوهُنْ. First and foremost, anybody who would try to use this verse to justify beating up their wife, you have to understand something. Go back to what was the purpose for it in the first place. The wife is not fulfilling her obligations. One of the things we have to all study as husbands and wives is what really are the obligations of the wife, and they are very minimal. Cooking you dinner is not her obligation. Cleaning the house is not your obligation. The obligations of the wife are very minimal. Now, there may be some cultural things that are expected, but that's not the obligation. Another thing is that oftentimes the individual who is beating their wife is not beating them because they were disobedient, because she didn't want to have intercourse at a specific time. They're beating them because they have an anger management problem, or they themselves have been abused. On top of that, every single scholar that I've ever read from, in every single tafsir, Tafsir al-Sa'di, Tafsir al-Muyassar, Tafsir ibn Kathir, Tafsir al-Tabari, Tafsir al-Baghawi, every single tafsir, the interpretation of this verse is غَيْرُ مُبَرِّحْ, that you are not allowed in Islam, first and foremost, to hit anybody in the face. That's why you'll see the scholars will argue that boxing is not permissible, because you're not allowed to hit anybody in the face in Islam when you're fighting them, never mind your wife or your husband for that matter. Number two, adha al-Muslim haram. Harming the Muslim is impermissible. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La darar wa la dirar." There is no harm nor reciprocation of harm. Every single tafsir of this verse says غَيْرُ مُبَرِّحْ, that you are not allowed to hit the individual in a way that will harm them. Every single one of the tabi'een that talk about this verse say the same thing, غَيْرُ مُبَرِّحْ. One of the tabi'een, he said, ضَرْبٌ أو ضَرْبٌ لَا يُؤَثِّرْ, a hit that has no effect. In other words, something less severe than one who spanks their child. So the misappropriation of this verse to justify that you can beat up your husband or your wife is absolutely ludicrous. And this is not part of Islam. As the Imam mentioned in the khutbah today, the Prophet ﷺ was reported as never laying a hand on anybody. Never laying a hand on anybody. And again, we have all of the verses. وَعَاشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. You're supposed to live with your spouse in a good and appropriate manner. So we want to dispel this misconception. We don't want people thinking that, no, Islam says that you can hit your wife. Okay? We're not talking about boxing here. We're not allowed to harm our spouse. We're supposed to live with them as sakina and tranquility. Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي. The best of you is the best to your family, and I'm the best to my family. So we should try to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. One of the questions is, how can I tell whether I'm being patient with my husband or allowing myself to be abused? What's the red line in the sand? Like, how do I know? Maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe just having a bad day. This is the first time. He never done that before. I don't think he'll do it again. Where's the red line in the sand, sister?
Well, I think that, I know that the treatment, when we talk about the different treatments, when someone is, yelling and screaming at you, or so I'm trying to be patient. But when that subsides, you need to talk. You need to have an understanding that... Like
reconciliation of the
yes,
fight?
No. You need to talk and say, that's crossing a boundary. And that's another thing, crossing boundaries is abusive. When you start crossing boundaries into another person, crossing a boundary with another person. It's like if that person is screaming and hollering at you and calling you out your name and that type of thing, and you say, well, I need to be patient. Well, if you don't say anything, then that person is going to think, well, that's okay. She's okay with that. So I think that those boundaries, drawing those boundaries, I think that's where it starts, right there in that particular instance, is to draw the boundary. Anytime something happens that's unacceptable, you need to stop it when it happens and talk about it if you can at that moment. Now, sometimes it may get to a point of being heated, so you have to wait till some of that subsides and then talk when you're more amicable with each other. and not just trying to go back and forth. I think arguing is senseless as far as I'm concerned because nobody's listening. So you have to wait until people are in a sane state, if you will.
So I think maybe we have one more opportunity for a question. There's two that I'm going to combine, both of which unfortunately are disturbing. The first is my father is abusive to me and my 5 siblings and my mom. What do we do to control all of us? He physically hits us and I'm getting his qualities. I have a bad temper. The second one is I have been abused by my father. I feel hopelessness and I can't do anything about it because he is my father. What can I do about this? Also, my brother abuses me. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First and foremost, and I might overstep the boundaries and you all can advise otherwise if you feel so, but one of the things that I've understood being an imam or in an imam position, that if any point in time a minor comes to me and tells me that they're being abused or harmed in any way, I have to report it to the authorities.
Absolutely.
I have absolutely no other option.
Absolutely.
And on top of the fact that I know that Child Protective Services is a mess, I don't feel any discontent in my heart trying to do whatever I can to protect that child. Yes, that is your child, but at the same time, that is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not your punching bag. And unfortunately, well, alhamdulillah, they didn't, but at the same time, the child didn't mention what type of abuse they were receiving, whether it was physical abuse, verbal abuse, or sexual abuse. At that point in time, I'll stop there because I'm not really sure what do I advise, and I don't want to speak out of a lack of knowledge. But if they had come to me, I'd tell you what I would do. But how I would advise them, I don't know.
There's a 1-800 number, and if I were you and on there, I would send them that 1-800 number, that hotline, abuse hotline. You can send them a number. What they do on the abuse hotline, pardon me?
Do you know the number offhand?
No, I don't know it. I can get it for you real
There's-
quick. And let me just tell you real quick, what they do in the 1-800, they will direct you to a facility that is in your area. Okay, so that 1-800 number, that hotline number of abuse, they will do that.
So there's a number that's going to come on the screen soon, and there's also a national hotline.
Yes, a national hotline. That's the one they should call. They will direct them in their area. They really need some really professional guidance, some professional help with that.
Yeah. So just the last comment. There's this number right here.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
1-800-799-SAFE.
Safe, yes.
1-800-799-SAFE. There's also 1-800-621-HOPE. That's the one we used to use for my facility. It's 1-800-621-HOPE. If you have bad memory, please write it down. 1-800-621-HOPE. 1-800-621-HOPE. Please write it down. Also, if you find yourself in a situation, find someone you trust and seek their counsel, seek their advice. And if there's no one, you always have the hotlines, but you have me, you have Imam Nick, and you have Sister Latifa. I'm volunteering myself. You see me around, please come to me. Please come to me. I don't know how I can help you, but I would love to try.
Well,
yeah.
I can, I'll give you my website and you all can go there and have any questions because I've been doing this for a while and I am, I'm at a point where I give out the hotline or I'll refer them out, but there are certain things that I do have or I do know how to do. So if you have any questions or if you want me to talk with you about something, I do it. I'm also a life coach, so I do coaching as well. So I'm healthypositivechoices.com. They can contact me there.
So I'd just like to thank Sister Latifa and Brother Abdul Munim, and I'd just like to close right before we head off to Salah. And inshallah ta'ala, one of the action items I think for the masjid and specifically the outreach team is that we should put up as many resources for the brothers, the sisters, and the children of the community, first and foremost on the ICI website as well as our individual pages on Facebook. And so, brothers and sisters, again, we want to understand, as we said before, al-Muslim man salim al-Muslim min lisanihi wa yadihi, that the Muslim is the one who the Muslims are safe from their hand and their tongue, and that we're not abusive physically and we're not abusive verbally. I'll leave you with one thing, because we haven't talked too much from the side of the abuser. And the reality is that oftentimes these situations happen in moments of anger. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked by one of the companions for advice, he said, "La taghdab." He said, "Can you give me some other advice?" He said, "La taghdab." "Can you give me some other advice?" "La taghdab." 3 times in a row he said, "Could you advise me?" He said, "Do not become angry." We have to learn to control our anger. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, when you become angry, sit down. And if you're still angry, lay down. In other words, if you've become angry to the point where you feel that you're going to strike your wife, or you're going to strike your husband, or you're going to strike your children, or you're going to strike your parents, change your situation. Get up and out of where you are. Get out of the house, get out of the room, go for a drive, go for a walk. Because that's not how we deal with people as Muslims. We have to recognize something. If the Prophet, or rather if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Musa alayhi salam and his brother Harun, who were going to the worst of the worst of the worst of all of mankind, Fir'aun. And he said, اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقولا له قولا لينا لعله يتذكر أو يخشى. Your wife, your child, your husband is nowhere on the level of Fir'aun. And so if the Prophet, or rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advised the Prophet Musa and his brother Harun that when you go to him, speak to him in a soft and gentle manner, then what type of character should we have as Muslims with the ones whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted in our care and in our homes? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us not just talk the talk, but walk the walk and hold the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he said, "Khayrukum khayrukum li ahli wa ana khayrukum li ahli." The best of you is the best to his family, I am the best to my family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all, protect you all. If anybody has any additional issues or questions, they can approach me after the salah or any time during the week. We'll put up the resources on the website and the Facebook pages. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول